Welcome to Spirited Discussion, a Spirit Island podcast. Spirit Island is a complicated game with a high price tag. If only there was a way to start your Spirit Island journey with a lower barrier to entry. Introducing Horizons of Spirit Island. That's what we're here to talk about today. How you doing, Thomas?
I'm doing really well. And yourself?
Doing all right.
That's awesome.
We're going to talk about a very interesting box.
It's a really nice box. I'm a big fan of this. It's a cool product.
Okay, yeah. I think there will be maybe some comparisons to Feather and Flame, and a lot of comparisons to the base game, I think.
Yeah, they have to be made.
So if you don't know what Horizons of Spirit Island is, basically, it is a scaled-down version of Spirit Island that plays exactly the same as the main game, but was made to be sold specifically at Target to start, with a $30 price tag with components that all functionally work the same as the main game, but are a little bit different in quality and what they're made of. And according to the Greater Than Games podcast, apparently they said that the sales were a really big success, and then it opened up so that it was no longer just at Target, it was sold everywhere. I know when I picked up my copy a few years ago, I got it on Amazon for $15.
I bought mine after a long time at Target for around the same price. Mm-hmm. At that point, how do you say no?
Yeah. So the big kind of the thing you hear with it, and actually I ended up buying Horizons before I got the base game, and then we never ended up playing it, and we got the base game, and then, we got everything else and mixed it all together. But one of the big selling points is just the fact that the spirits that are in this are completely unique spirits. They're not just the base game spirits. They're not even like the base game spirits with aspects. They are different spirits, and they work with every other part of the game. If you are new to the game, this is a good starting point. And if you're not new to the game, hey, who doesn't want more spirits to play around with?
For sure. If you've played the game quite a bit, new spirits are never a bad thing. One of the negative aspects would be that if you are experienced with the game, you might want spirits that are a little more complicated, but new spirits are new spirits. You can't complain.
Yeah, I mentioned Feather and Flame earlier because I think this is kind of the other side of that coin, where Feather and Flame's content is, for the most part, just, more spirits, more aspects. Those ones tend to be higher complexity. Even the base game aspects generally make those base game spirits more complex. Whereas this one is the opposite. Whereas this is, let's go down lower complexity. Still very optional in terms of content for the game. I feel like if you own the base game and Jagged Earth, you have kind of the bulk of like the game. But in terms of optional content, it's like talking about branching paths of like, do you want more complexity or less complexity, right? Like, if you don't care about adding game elements, that is like, do you recommend Horizons versus recommending Feather and Flame?
That's completely reasonable. There are, like, in my mind, this is just 5 new spirits, and comparing it to Feather and Flame, saying, hey, do you want 5 new spirits that are simple or 4 new spirits that are more complicated? That's a really simple breakdown as to which one you should look at. This does a few other things that might entice some other people, though.
This was a great thing to buy for like a Secret Santa or something, if you know someone likes board games.
Mm-hmm. It's so accessible. The price point is, it's hard to look away.
With the asterisk that I do not know what these go for these days. Unfortunately, a lot of boxes are getting up there in price and hard to find, but just as intended, and fingers crossed that some normalcy eventually returns to printing of these. $30 or $15 is amazing for what you get here.
Yeah, and part of how it was so cheap is the lower quality components, and I'm not saying that as a bad thing. The components are still pretty cool. The Dahan and the Invaders, the Blight, they're all printed on a little chipboard, and you can keep track of their health more easily by flipping them over, and they stack, and so it's kind of easy to tell how many invaders are in one place. Sometimes an island will get so crowded that I actually have a coaster that I put all the invaders onto sometimes. But if you're using the chipboard, it's easier to tell.
I've heard of people using these to represent like when you get to 5 explorers, you put one of these down
Mm,
instead of just the plastic, and that's kind of a cool system. Another thing about all of this is that I've seen people use this as either they keep it separate from their main game as a way to like have a travel version of Spirit Island, which is really neat. I think that's kind of an interesting concept, and to go along with like if the components are like this, you don't really care as much if you lose one because it's just like cardboard.
yeah.
Um, so I think that's kind of interesting.
I have used it several times as a teaching tool.
Mm-hmm.
It's no, don't have to remove any cards or any tokens, no event deck. There's no extra questions like what's that over there. No, no, no. Just look at these. This is the simple things right in front of us, and it really narrows the scope of what sort of questions get asked from a new player, and
Mm-hmm.
it helps guide the game more easily.
Makes
Whenever you don't
sense.
have all the expansions, right in front of you.
Right. And as a part of that simplicity, the board is actually like a board, a big unfolding board that on one side is 2 maps and on the other side is 3. And
Yeah.
so you don't have to deal with like, setting up the board correctly, like the way you put the boards together. It's just like, here's a very simple, open this up, boom, you're in it. And then on that board is everything. Is the fear, the invader deck, the blight pool, like all of that exists on a board, which is like designed to make it really easy to just kind of set up and get going, as opposed to having different, all this stuff in different spaces. Your table is completely full when you're playing a game of Spirit Island with everything included.
It feels like a board game. And that's weird to
Yeah.
say because Spirit Island is a board game. But whenever you think about your childhood and you pull out a board game at grandma's, you have this board that you unfold and stuff goes on it. And that's what Horizons is. You unfold this board and everything's on
Hmm.
that board, unlike normal Spirit Island.
It does a good job of maybe bridging the gap of what traditionally people think of as a board game
Yeah,
and what Spirit Island is now.
for sure. Like, if my mom played Spirit Island, I think she'd
Hmm.
be overwhelmed with the experience. But she could look at Horizons, still be overwhelmed. But it would be
Yeah,
approachable, accessible enough for her to want to try.
that's very fair, and that's of course again it was all designed to be in a Target, right? Not
Hmm.
necessarily, a hobby store or whatever, or even like among a ton of games in a Barnes and Noble or something. It's literally designed to be one of only a handful of games that are stocked at Target, alongside things like Cards Against Humanity or Uno, right? Like more party games, more familiar games to people. You might also see this on the shelf, and that's fantastic.
If you're a person who doesn't know what you're looking at, you're just like, hey, this family member wants to get a game. I'm at Target. This is where games are at. This is a great selection. This is a great random pickup for
Hmm.
most people. It is easy to learn with the way that they have it set up, and like I appreciate that.
Yes, yes, 100%. Especially because if you comparing it to the base game box, you might open the base game box, decide Bringer of Dreams and Nightmares and Ocean's Hungry Grasp are the coolest looking characters in this game. Let's play them first, right? Obviously, the base game points you towards playing something like Shadows or Lightning or whatever, but I don't think it's uncommon for people to see these things and say, let's play them. You might play them, have a bad experience because you kind of have to know the game before you handle those type of spirits, and then think poorly of the game or not try it again or whatever. This box, there's just no way to go wrong. There's no way to accidentally crank up the difficulty, accidentally pick
Hmm.
spirits that aren't meant for that. It's just kind of such an insular experience that's perfect. You give someone a stack of all of the spirits in the game, and even though some say low and some say high, there's going to be types of players that want to do the high complexity and underestimate just how complicated they are.
I get what you're saying completely. Whenever I'm teaching new players, I don't give them the option. You're looking at these 5 spirits and enjoy. And before Horizons, it was you look at these 4 spirits. That's all. You just pick one that looks cool.
Hmm.
And I know exactly what you're talking about. You give him the whole stack, and someone looks at vengeance, and I'm like, no, 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 back up.
Yeah, yeah. Well, because there are lots of games out there where the character selection, it means, the characters are different, but they aren't generally that much more complex than each other. It almost doesn't matter. It's just kind of what flavor you like the most, right? Whereas in this game, it's of course there's the flavor and what you like, but there's the gameplay, there's the complexity, there's a lot. Do you like placing a lot of presence, having a lot of energy? What are you trying to do in Spirit Island? The selection can get, I mean, I'm surely be overwhelming. And I do know a lot of players prior to the tariff situation did just buy all the expansions at once and kind of shuffle everything together and just went early on. And I don't generally recommend that.
It's overwhelming.
Within the span of like 2 months, I think I had everything in Spirit Island, but that's over the course of like, we played at least 50 games before having everything.
Yeah, 50 games is pretty. That's a lot of games.
We were playing like every day and stuff. So I understand the board gamer's tendency to want everything all at once and mix it all together, but it's good to start somewhere.
If you look at a game like Pandemic and you say, hey, pick your character, the characters are like, move someone out of turn or heal an extra bit. They're really simple. They're narrow in scope. Or even like video games like League of Legends. There's 160-ish characters, but the most simple versus the most complicated, it's still relatively narrow in scope. And I don't think that's true in Spirit Island. I think the most complicated versus the simplest is break your brain versus a cakewalk.
Looking at the levels of it, it's like you have a sandworm that just does damage where it is versus a time manipulating existential crisis of a being. It's like you know what I mean? Like it's even in the flavor, it shows you that, like, yeah, some of these things are pretty straightforward. Like this is just kind of like a little monster, and then this thing is like an unknowable thing. Like
River is the representation of river. Quakes is technically earthquakes.
Yeah, it's like a dancing monster thing that like,
don't look at it. It kind of scares me.
And yeah, I mean, that's so true. It's like, for a lot of other games, the spirits would be special rules are all different, but like the presence tracks and the growth tracks and the innates would all be very similar. But that's not the case in this game. In this game, everything is different. Like Pandemic, like you said, is just a little special rule. It doesn't fundamentally change how you play Pandemic. It gives you a little thing that you can do.
Yeah.
So yeah.
This is a wonderful starting point for the game. Just for this learning experience. It narrows the scope of what you can do. It reduces the failure rate. It's so accessible.
Yeah, and it throws out anything that, again, you could accidentally add too much difficulty to too fast.
Yeah.
It does not have adversaries. It does not have scenarios. It does not tell you you can play with an extra board. In fact, it doesn't even let you, because the boards are set 2 or 3. That's all you get.
No modularity.
Yes. And it's funny because you ask people, and some people would say, like, well, why would I ever want a lack of modularity? And true, if you're an experienced person, yeah, no, why would, the one of the greatest things about Spirit Island is how much you can just tweak the game in all these weird ways that are officially supported. But if you're a newer player, some people need to be forced to be limited. It's
Not
very
even
important.
If you're a newer player, people experience analysis paralysis all the time, and
True.
It's very easy to get into the tank on some of the turns in Spirit Island, but if you are subjected to that on a frequent basis, you might not want to just pick a random board, rotate it on the table, and jam them together.
Yeah.
You might just want the consistent foundation of this is the game, this is the board, and that's okay.
That's completely fair. And going back to what we said earlier, so this is the game of Spirit Island. One of the misconceptions I've seen just from outside of the Spirit Island community is like, oh, this is like...
It's Spirit Island, but like dumbed down, right?
Yeah, it's like Ticket
Spirit
to Ride
Island?
Junior, like, is this simplified? Is this
Cascadia
whatever?
for kids?
Yeah. And it's like, on the one hand, maybe you could describe it that way, but ultimately, all of the rules, everything here, is exactly the same way you'd play a game of Spirit Island.
I recall reading an interview about this game, this Horizons, and they were like, "Hey," or a Target reaching out saying, "Hey, could you make Spirit Island but like simpler?" And their response was, "No, but we will make it cheaper."
That's, yeah, that makes sense. And of course, as anyone who's played a good amount of the expansions and stuff knows, that like you play without tokens and events, and the game is a much simpler experience. So, other things in this box, because they basically, in addition to making it new player friendly, they did want to make it so that anyone who does love Spirit Island, if you're really invested in it, you're probably going to want this box too. And so they tried to fill it with as much kind of quality of life stuff as they could, at little things, right? So, for example, they did not reuse the presence token colors.
I was about to mention the same thing. One of my friends, one of his favorite things about this expansion is it had 3 new colors. He uses them every single time. Loves them.
Turquoise, maroon, and gold. They didn't have to do that. It probably would have been simpler to just not, but it's good that they did, because it just gives you more. You don't need that, right? I don't need that. You don't need that. But in terms of player choice, if you find that color to be nice, great, use it. It's the exact same thing as the regular game.
If you like to match your color with the spirit, it's like a form of expression. And that's how I play it all the time. It's which exact color matches this spirit the best.
That's fair.
There's been points where 2 people pick the spirit that's like similar color, and I'm like, I'll just pick someone else, no big deal.
What's nice too is that, like, with all of these extra presents, if you're like an artsy person, you could just say, cool, like, I'll just take one of the colors and do a cool design on it, right? And it's not maybe, hey, I love playing Hember-Eyed Behemoth. I'm gonna take the gold one and paint over it so that it looks like there's just golden eyes coming out of it. Like, you could do that. It's fun. On top of that, the minor and major powers. So the decks are exactly the same gameplay-wise as in the base game, but actually they're kind of improved in that they fixed some of the wording on some of these cards to make them more consistent with the text from like Jagged Earth and onward. And I think that's really cool. It's
not like the text was wrong,
yes,
by any means. The rules for the cards have stayed exactly the same. It's that a lot of it's for Spirit Island, the cards were more flavorful. It would say something, and it would be more evocative of what the card is doing thematically, while very clearly describing what the rules of the card are doing. And I think that the new cards are a little more rote. I prefer it slightly because I like the consistency of language between cards.
Right.
But I did notice that slight change of like, oh, this takes a little bit away from something to add somewhere else.
It's interesting. It's definitely the hindsight of saying, okay, this is a thing with multiple expansions that we're going to also keep adding on to. So we're going to want things to be consistent, especially as complicated as they are. But I do see that it could lose just a little bit of the flavorfulness from it. One of the big things they did was they got rid of the plus sign on a lot of things. Apparently there were things that were like +3 fear if invaders are present, and now it just says 3 fear if invaders are present. And they did that because sometimes plus was used and sometimes it wasn't. And that sort of thing is it's just good to make that consistent.
Just make it consistent. Do the same thing. There's a lot of cards. One of the ways that people best learn is, say, look at one card, it works this way. This other card is formatted in that way, therefore it must work that same way. And if it doesn't, there's a problem. Or if they are supposed to work the same way and they're formatted differently, like, that's a big question. Why are they different?
Yeah. And then there's also just consistency of, like, they capitalized all instances of, like, destroy and remove, right? It's like they kind of...
They're proper nouns within the game.
Right. They kind of keyworded them almost.
Yeah.
Which is cool. So, yeah, it's the sort of thing that, yeah, I replaced all my decks. Also, I mean, hey, if you had the base game for a while and maybe some of your cards are beaten down, right? Boom, easy replacements right here. And as I mentioned, a lot of people use this for a travel version, or, as you mentioned, a separate version of Spirit Island that you could just put in a little box. You could bring over to a friend's house, teach them how to play Spirit Island, or even just keep it at your house, but whip it out, and so they're not They're not tempted by all the other stuff. They just see this.
I was really excited to replace my major powers, fear cards with this box. And I'd done that, but the color on the back, the printing, was so different from the rest of the cards. I was like, I know exactly which cards are coming up. Like, I don't know which card exactly, but they're from the base game. I know that, and I didn't like that, so I ended up putting them back.
That's fair. That's unfortunately minor printing differences will always exist.
Yeah.
I have my cards sleeved, so I don't really care that much. Not that I don't care. It's just it literally doesn't matter. But
Yeah.
that's totally fair.
It was especially prevalent for major powers because I think that the base game major powers are sometimes a little strong.
Oh, for sure. I have seen this lead to some confusion from new players because, generally speaking, right, when adding expansions in this game, you shuffle everything in, right?
Oh yeah, the expansions are almost always more of the same.
There's like 1 to 3 cards, maybe like 5 cards total, right, across all the decks that are like, take this card out and put this one in, right? It's either a straight upgrade or just a balance patch or whatever. But for the most part, if you shuffled everything together, you'd be fine. Do not shuffle these cards into your major and minor decks or your fear deck. Do not do that, or else you'll end up with some weird situation where you have multiple copies of the same card, and that, I don't know, that just seems wacky.
That's just whack, yo.
I mean, if you want to go for the zaniest game of Spirit Island possible, you could. But I would not suggest that.
Well, I do want to play Call the Dahan Ways multiple times in a turn, so maybe.
So we mentioned the board. Curiously, there's actually new island boards.
Yeah, they're completely unique.
Yeah, you can't use them with the other ones unless you get really creative. But they're there.
You know, the digital game implements them.
Yeah. So boards G and H we're talking about. There's also board F reprinted, but who cares? Yeah. How do you feel?
I never play with the board. It's always modular boards for me. And so I have very, very little experience with G and H. The only time I really get them is whenever I'm playing digital.
Yep.
And I don't do that too often. But H to me feels really weird. like it's almost like there's a giant barrier to get onto or off of the board. It's hard to describe exactly.
Yeah.
They look weird to me because the boards look so different than the rest of them. I think it's a little funky. A lot of really nuanced stuff. Like the topology of the boards within Spirit Island are so hard to express exactly how they change the way the game plays, but it does, and it's more like a feeling than anything else.
Well, one concrete thing I can say is just that we have had games on the digital, because digital I think sometimes picks random boards for you, or sometimes I just grab them from the side without really thinking about it. And we've had more than one game where we ended up with that wall of mountains from H, and we had that up against another mountain, and having 3 mountains in the center of the board just right next to each other leads to some really not great things.
Oh, a cool thing about H is that on land 3 there are 3 adjacent lands on that same board, and land 3 is often a really scary spot. If there's a blight that goes there, it doesn't have places to go to. But to counter that, land 5, one of the lands touching land 3, has the blight to start there, and so the effective amount of lands that for blight to go to is still 2.
Interesting. Huh.
Like that's one of those feeling things. Or like land 8, which is supposed to be the most inland land, is adjacent to the coast.
Yeah.
In fact, every single land is 1 away from the coast except land 7. Most boards have 2 lands away, or a distance 2 away from the coast rather than distance 1 for 2 different lands. That's just, it feels weird.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it sure does. But ultimately, if they were going to have this many boards in the game, they had to do weird stuff with them, or else they'd just feel like
Yeah,
duplicates. I
for
like
sure.
the fact that board H at least feels somewhat different, because I never have to play with board H. Like, I never have to, right?
Hmm.
It being in the game is not the worst thing for me. And then, of course, part of that, so like that weirdness of the two mountains, is bad when it pushes up against a mountain. But the way that it's laid out on this board means that it's not. In the physical version, it never will be.
Yeah. The it's not weird in the same way that board D is from the base game, where you have two coastal wetlands.
Yeah.
Also, land 8 is also one away from land 1 under the coast on that board. But that one I just don't like. Like, I've experienced a bunch and I'm like, I don't want to play with this. Go away.
Is that the one with the long wetlands?
Yeah, the
Oh, the long
long
wetlands.
wetlands on
That's
the
another.
coast.
That's another day. That's another episode. We're just gonna make
Hmm.
it. Won't be about that board. It'll be about that long wetlands and exclusively that long wetlands.
The whole time. It's just those swamps.
Don't. You will never get tired of us saying long wetlands. I promise. And anyway, one minor thing kind of cool about the boards in the physical version is just that they try to make it very clear what is and what is not coastal. In that they have kind of like a rocky exterior, I guess, and the non-coastal zones, and then the coasts have like a little, kind of like a little sandy shore almost, like a little line that indicates these are the coasts. Which I definitely, for like a new player, that's the sort of thing that could trip you up, because sure, it shows you the ocean, but like, then what else? Everything else, like, is this coastal? Is this not? So I appreciate that they really did try to make it as clear as humanly possible.
Having it all be on one board, I think that's necessary, because otherwise everything was coastal, right?
Right.
But it looks wonky to me. It looks it's hard for me to read it.
Okay,
Uh,
that's fair.
yeah, that's a me problem.
Can we play a version? Can we play a scenario of Spirit Island where everything is coastal? Everything on the outside of the map is coastal.
I'm sure that there's a scenario someone's made like
Okay.
that.
It's mega
And, I
mega
bet it's
Scotland.
yeah. Oh no.
Uh,
Ward the Shores plus that.
mm,
Never finish.
okay, so I feel like we've hit on basically everything other than the spirits, right?
Yeah, more or
Is
less.
there anything else worth talking about?
It's really just the spirits, which is for a lot of people bread and butter of the game.
Of course. And again, the big selling point, if you know how to play Horizons, is the fact that you get not 4, but 5 brand new spirits. So, shall we start going through them?
Yeah. Beforehand, which one's your favorite?
Oh, well, the first one we're going to start with.
Okay.
All
Tell
right.
me.
Eyes watch from the trees. This one is a real gem. I've mentioned it on the podcast several times, but I in prep for this, I beat France 6 solo for the first time with
Oh,
Eyes.
really?
Yep. I had never
That's
done
cool.
that. And Eyes is just, it's just good. It's a good solid spirit that I find fits that perfect lane of, there's a simplicity here, but it's not so simple that I can't do anything outside of it. Like, I just feel like the positioning, you can't just sit there and just defend and just pull one Dahan in and have that, fix your lands, maybe at low difficulties, but at high difficulties you need to be pushing swaths of Dahan around, and that is like a fun little puzzle in and of itself.
I love moving pieces around Spirit Island.
Mm-hmm.
I love spatial puzzles, and if you wanted to call like Spirit Island like a combat game, something that's driven by tactical positioning, if you were to retheme this, Eyes is like almost a commander moving Dahan around and like protecting them. It's weird to think about it through the lens of what the theme could have been elsewise, and that's kind of how I see Eyes, where they're playing less of like this damage game and more just putting people in the right spot. How do I move my my armies.
Yeah. So the lore around it is that they're mysterious, but not that threatening eyes that just kind of stare at you from the trees. Usually they warn the Dahan of danger, and they can also protect them from the invaders' attacks. And then every once in a while, the eyes will be a little more proactive and just kind of pick off an explorer on its own. Um, and interestingly, no one knows if it's one being or like a collection of many. Are these just all eyes a part of one thing, right? Like a lot of spirits,
Hmm.
or is it like a many minds situation? What is your take on that? What do you picture them as?
Yeah, you know how trees can have like knots in them?
Mm-hmm.
I think they're those. They're
Okay.
not the creatures within the trees or anything. They're the branches that have come off, or the trees themselves have gotten twisted, and you look from the peripheral of your eye and you're like, oh, that's eyes over there, and you look directly at it and it just disappears.
Interesting.
It's just part of the tree.
Interesting. I imagine them as like a horde of owls. That's just kind of how I envision it in my head. Um, Interestingly, I believe I read that the design of this was originally going to be like much more threatening. That they were going to be like
Spook, like
sharp,
for real spooky.
sharp Scooby Doo eyes, if that means anything. Like pointed eyes instead of kind of round googly eyes. Because as presented, they're definitely not scary. Like if from our perspective.
They're googly and goofy.
Yes. Yeah, they're like mischievous. They're like and I think that suits them a lot better because they don't generally directly attack that much. They just kind of warn and point in the right direction. Maybe they just like signal, their eyes appear leading you towards something. Or maybe they look in a direction, right? And you follow that direction they're all looking. So, um, yeah. So their general theme, right, is that they have defense, they have the innate mischief and sabotage, and they also have the boon of watchful guarding. And between the two of them together, you can defend 20 total if you hit max threshold. Um, they also love to grab any defend cards they can really get their hands on. And then on top of
The
that,
more the merrier.
yeah, on top of that, Mysterious Abductions is not a defend card at all, but it will destroy one explorer, which oftentimes means that they just don't build there, which means that land is solved. So in addition to defending, they're just kind of good at solving lands. Secondary theme, of course, is the Dahan themselves. Anytime you defend, you yoink a Dahan if you want. You don't even have to. You can leave it where it is if you want. And then, of course, Whispered Guidance is a card they have that lets you move 3 more Dahan. And then lastly, it's also kind of a fear spirit. There's fear printed on its unique cards, as well as you can rack up a lot of fear with its innate.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so on top of everything, it's just kind of always inching you towards that victory condition. You can get 5 fear on its bottom level of its innate, and printed on its cards, it has a total of 4 fear on 3 cards.
If I compare this spirit to the base game's defend spirit, that would be Vital Strength of the Earth in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Vital Strength of the Earth struggles because they don't have any fear.
Mm-hmm.
You have to pivot at some point to actually win the game.
Mm-hmm.
And here, this encourages you to pick up more defend. You get the fear through his abilities, the innate power, through the Dahan being proactive for you. You get to move them around and make that meaningful. So I think this is almost like a direct iteration of how do we produce this feeling of making a bulwark somewhere. And that's what it feels like, is you're putting a sacred site in these jungles and you're a bulwark. You don't want to move around that much. And I think that's super cool.
Yeah, 100%. What's nice is just that you just have so much defense at your fingertips. And yeah, I've mentioned it before that like the problem with Earth is that it just does nothing innately to bring you towards victory, whereas this spirit will kill things but via Dahan and get you fear. Like it in 2 different
Yeah.
ways. Not only are you protecting the land, but you are progressing in ways, but it's not easy. It's not like you automatically get that. It's you have to set up the Dahan. You have to be working towards your fear as well. That's what I like. There's just like a simplicity, but not. It's not the easiest. Like I don't know. I don't know.
The Mysterious Abductions
Mm-hmm.
is their only damage card.
Yep.
It's really simple, one fear, one damage, range 0. And if you look at the art on all of their cards, these googly eyes are everywhere and they feel playful. Even the spooky ones, eerie noises and moving trees, like, that's creepy. But the lack of eyes on Mysterious Abductions really enhances the creepiness for me. And, like, wait, this is
Yeah.
a scary thing.
I think to some degree, even the like silliest, most playful of spirits can still be terrifying if they're mad enough at the invaders. I think
Yeah.
that's the idea is that some of them are innately just like terrifying. Some of them are middle level. Some of them are seem playful and fun, right? Like a lot of the ones in Horizons really. But I think that if you get on the wrong side of any of these spirits, they will mess you up. My turn one opener generally is I go growth 3, a bottom track into a land that explored. I kill the explorer with mysterious abductions, whispered guidance to set up Dahan for the next turn. That moves Dahan around, and then use my innate to pull a Dahan somewhere strategic for next turn, and get a little bit of fear. And that's that for me. But it's a spirit that has a lot of different possibilities.
For sure. Like, you can growth 2,
Hmm.
going from the bottom track, and underplay by playing like a single whispered guidance through the night and moving the Dahan where you need to during the slow phase really proactively in response to where they go, or you can grow 3 to have the sufficient energy so that you can
Eerie noises.
play eerie noises, and like that's really strong. Like,
Right.
playing the 1 damage fast is really strong. It's powerful. It's something that you want to do, but you can delay that.
Hmm. It's
I think it's cool.
also yeah, it's also nice. Like a lot of times with this spirit, with eerie noises and moving trees, so you can push up to 2 explorers slash towns. Oftentimes, I'm pushing stuff directly into ravaging lands. I'm like, I've got
Yeah,
this
yeah.
defended. I've got Dahan here. Sure, go right on in. As long as an event doesn't come and really just like ruin my day, that's a lot of fun. Not
You
every
mentioned
spirit.
events,
Yeah.
and that's unique. There aren't any in Horizons.
Oh yeah. They aren't in the base
Yeah,
game either.
true.
Yeah.
But I just reminded me, like, there aren't any here. But
Hmm.
yeah, if you're playing Experience Spirit Island, like, yeah, dealing with the events is cool.
Yeah. So in terms of weaknesses of the spirit, it is generally kind of got its focused strategy of moving around Dahan and things. If you aren't proactive with moving those Dahan early in the game to kill towns and explorers and cities and stuff like that, you will find yourself outpaced, especially with higher level adversaries. Now, obviously, it can be done. You can beat level 6s with this thing. I did. I mean, it's not that hard even, but if you're not really proactive, you're in trouble. And also, this one can get really messed up with events that kill Dahan.
Sure,
If you
that's fair.
set up a situation where you've defended a bunch and whatever, you've defended a little bit and you have like 3 Dahan in there, and then you get an event where the Dahan don't ravage, like that, or like the land doesn't ravage or whatever, like you're dependent on that, and that can mess you up. If you get something that just kills Dahan, that messes you up. There's a lot of ways that the event deck can really throw a wrench into your works.
There's also a lot of synergies that can come about from that. It's
Mhm.
easy to move to Han, and there's a lot of ways to, in the event deck, gain energy, reclaims, power cards, etc. And so, while there are some ways to hinder you, I think that there's more that benefit you.
Yeah, that's completely fair. Um, but yeah, basically, if you run out of Dahan, though, you're out of luck. That's basically it, though, right? I mean, obviously, you can draft
Yeah,
majors and you can draft, you can draft into whatever, but just innately, what the spirit is trying to do, um, you just need the Dahan to do it.
I think that in my mind, this is one of the most powerful spirits in the game,
Mm,
and it's like a weaker Many Minds,
okay.
where Many Minds is kind of a little game breaking, but it does a lot of things that Many Minds is trying to do, in getting things to the right spots and defending.
Yeah.
One of the things that Many Minds does, though, is that it just generates so much more fear, and this guy makes the right amount of fear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
He's just spooky enough.
if you did nothing but like defend with the spirit and just generate the fear that's on its cards, I think you'd still win, but it would be a close win. It wouldn't be a you wouldn't just like landslide win. You go to tier 3. Moving on, so power cards with neat interactions. Cycles of Time and Tide is like amazing on on this spirit, right? Adding Dahan in lands.
Yeah, I like that. It's adding Dahan on most spirits is really cool. It's a rare effect, so there's that. More than that would be the one that transforms a town or an explorer into a Dahan. And that's a little bit, I think, a little bit better.
Okay, fair.
They both have the moon, so that's cool. I really like Drift Down into Slumber. The elements match really well. It's really cheap, and it says defend.
Yeah.
Any card that is cheap and has defend is just kind of nutty.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that this spirit likes because things that move around large swaths of Dahan, cool, right? You could always use a little more of that. And there's a number of minor powers, especially that have you gather 3, push 3, whatever. And then there's also ones that add strife, which is good just for dealing with lands, right? So that the Dahan can attack and they don't get killed. And then things that do things based upon Dahan amount. There's that minor power that's like gather up to 1 Dahan, defend 1 per Dahan in the land. That one's pretty good.
Yeah.
There's also Veil of the Night's Hunt, which is each Dahan deals 1 damage to a different invader, which that combo with other things can be cool. There's Strong and Constant Currents, which lets you kind of move Dahan between coastal lands, right? Which can bring Dahan from one board to another board, which is really cool.
That is a cool card.
Yeah, I mean, really, just like looking through the minor deck, it's like, man, what doesn't this spirit want, really?
Probably most fire cards. The damage, I feel like, just doesn't scale super well. Dahan damage is really big.
Yeah.
So defend is, in a lot of ways, deal 2 damage at a minimum. And if you have Dahan movements, now it's like defend is deal 6 damage, which is strong.
Yeah.
And a lot of fire cards tend to do damage, like Savage Maw Beasts. Like, okay, yeah, here's a damage. Okay.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But yeah, a lot of things work well on this. As far as adversaries and scenarios, I've said it several times on this podcast, but just when things get healthier, when towns and cities and explorers take more Dahan to kill than what the current economy of it is now, it just makes things a lot harder. The idea of 2 Dahan to kill a very healthy town is like disgusting. That's horrible.
Yeah, you'll find that just extra health is a very challenging thing. Check out the tier list where adversary powers are all over the place.
Yeah. There's also I beat France 6. But what can really mess you up with France is towns in events, because you deal with towns during the Ravage step, but the Ravage step is after the events, so you could just have a bunch of towns on the board that you're ready to wipe, right? The Dahan are there, you've set everything up correctly, everything's going well, and then an event just says, add a town here, and that's it, you lose. Too bad. That can happen, and that stinks. But it's not too bad. Yeah, I don't know that there's really any horrible matchups with this thing.
Maybe Russia. While you have a lot of defend, Russia makes it so that even the single explorer has to be looked at questioningly.
Fair. That's
and if you do defend, then they get worse. Russia 6 adding an explorer in a town every single turn.
Ugh.
You can't deal with it forever.
In terms of like fun spirits to play it with, uh, typically like slower and powerful spirits are really fun with this thing because eyes can just stall if needed, just between playing its the defend cards it drafts as well as the one defend card it has that can be used on other spirits as well. And it's innate, just boom. Oftentimes it's innate's enough to just defend a land, and if you don't have to care that much about setting up the Dahan for a counterattack, this thing can really just defend all day, every day. So you have a more slower and powerful spirit like a memory or something, right? It's like eyes can hold down the fort and push get a little bit of fear. We're still progressing things, and then you like wildfire or something swoop in and just kill everything.
Have you played it with the Hearth Vigil?
No, I have not.
It's a lot of extra Dahan. If we like the minor powers that add Dahan, we might as well start the game with some extra. And those also help out with those events that you're worried about. So I think that's a cool combo.
Okay. Yeah, I have not tried this with another Dahan spirit. I would worry a little bit that there's diminishing returns, right? With like this and a Thunder Speaker.
I think it's a multiplicative return.
Ooh. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
They bounce off each other and make it so that all of the things that you want to happen just happen more and better.
I guess that's true because there's Dahan per board, so it's not like you have less Dahan. You just got to be.
Yeah.
But it does add complexity probably, right? In that.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's more of that spatial puzzle.
Yeah, if you're playing the spirit with with Emberide Behemoth or something, like Emberide doesn't care where you put the Dahan, put them wherever. It does not care.
Stumpy.
Yeah. As long as it's out of his way, that's all that matters. So, but if I'm Eyes and you're Thunder Speaker, we got to coordinate well on like, don't pull this here because I need this here. Interesting.
A cute combo is base Shadow Flicker like Flame. You can move the Dahan one at a time just for his targeting.
Nice.
I've never done that, and I never will.
What is your general feelings on Eyes Watching the Trees?
They're really strong. I don't really connect with them thematically, and I don't like their puzzle that much. It sounds like I'm really down on them. Yeah, but they're fun to play with. I enjoy playing around with them. They give enough power, I like to play very mobile spirits, and them saying, who needs defend 8? I'm like, I can be there. I think it's fun. It's cool.
Okay. Cool. You want to talk about my least favorite one from this box next?
I do.
Devouring Teeth Lurk Underfoot.
Not a fan, huh?
No. This spirit is just kind of like a sandworm that wrecks invaders wherever it has presence, and then it kind of lurks around to find more invaders to eat. And its shtick is that it does damage, and it does damage, and it does damage.
I didn't like him the first time I played him, and he grew on me a lot recently. Yeah. Even when you're playing with Ocean, you can never give a gift of Furious Might.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I like Emberite Behemoth. Like, I do like some very damage direct spirits, but this just seems too simplistic to a point where I just think it's boring. I think it's boring that your damage dealing powers do +1 damage, and that's it. Your innate, right? All it does, right? It can move your presence 1, and then it just does damage. That's its thing, right? It's power cards, damage. Like it does a few other things, but I don't know.
For sure, and like that shifts the puzzle.
Yeah.
If Eyes has this puzzle of how do I get the Dahan into the right space, the spatial reasoning puzzle. I need to move them here, defend there. That's their thing. The puzzle here is how do I get my presence to be in the right spot to be able to do what I need to do.
Yeah.
And I enjoy that puzzle quite a bit.
Okay. Another thing about the spirit, so it's you always place a presence no matter which growth you pick. There's no double presence. So your
Yeah,
growth is a slow incremental growth. It takes you 4 from the bottom track to get to your third card play, which is a little not the most fun. I don't know. I'm not saying it's not powerful or it's bad or whatever. I just this specific, I guess, puzzle does not really resonate with me all that much.
for
And
sure.
yeah, um,
And I will say it's not powerful. It's kind of bad.
mhm. That's fair. Um,
Yeah, it does take a long time to get to 3 card plays, uh, and it's a special rule. Your damage dealing powers do +1 damage means that you want to play a lot of cards,
mhm.
but you can't, and so there's that weird dichotomy. There's that tension.
Yep.
I particularly enjoy that tension, but it doesn't feel good in some ways. And then on the top track, you don't even increase energy until a couple of turns. But once you get to that 3, it just ticks up really aggressively. I
Mhm.
think that's fun and engaging. And that would encourage you to pick up some major powers. But whenever you are dealing +1 damage with a major power, it's usually a lower percentage, or they're tuned around certain thresholds.
Mhm.
Like this does 5 damage, which is enough to destroy a city and a town. The +1 isn't as beneficial.
Yeah.
And so it has this weird tension of what are you really trying to do? And what I find to be best for me is to go off the bottom track and accept only playing 2 cards of the first few turns, trying to control the board as I gain minor powers, and look for those 0 cost things.
Mhm.
And once you get to 3 card plays, go off, Queen. I think that I mentioned Savage Maw Beast with Eyes as a bad card,
Mhm.
but it's a really good card here.
uh,
0 cost on element, big damage. So I like doing things like that.
from a design standpoint, I do appreciate that this kind of teaches players about Badlands before they even have any idea about Badlands.
It's cool.
That's
Yeah.
that's nice. That's nice. I just feel like it's too simplistic. Like that I don't know. That's just kind of my vibe. It's just that your damage dealing powers do +1 damage. I think there's another spirit in Horizons that has a similar vibe but has a much more interesting rule. We'll get to that in a minute. But
Something about this spirit has some feel bad moments,
mhm.
and I found these pretty consistently. Like the Mark territory with Scars and Teeth, it's kind of expensive, and it says defend 9, and it
Yep.
pushes the Dahan. And if you just read this card as to fear, skip the Ravage, like this is a good card. But the phrasing
Yeah.
defend, you're like, "Ugh, I don't want to push the Dahan," and it kind of creates bad feelings. But you can try to leverage that into your favor. How can I push the Dahan into be a good position? And
Mhm.
so, or maybe I can get an excessive number of Dahan here, and so now it's a defend 9. You get Dahan into the right spot. You get a counter attack. You can do a lot with this card,
Mhm.
but it can create poor play patterns if you're uh, not prepared for that. Or Gift of Furious Might.
Yep.
It does require a little bit of synergies. Most spirits have something, and some spirits just don't. And this card has to be played. It's your cheapest card, and has the elements you need.
Yeah. It increases another spirit's damage dealing power by +3. And
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you joked before. We played a game where you were the spirit and I was Ocean, and Ocean does not believe in damage dealing powers because it just destroys everything. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's a feels bad. It's in single player, you can use this on yourself, and that feels maybe a little better because you have damage dealing, but not entirely because a lot of your damage dealing is enough to just clear the land anyway. But
Hmm.
or at least clear the land of what you can deal damage to in the case of Ferocious Rampage, only getting to attack explorers and towns. Um yeah, no, but yeah, it's just I don't know, there's just something limited. I mean, I'm glad that low complexity players also have the experience of wildfire. That's fine. They can have frustrating damage dealing spirit too.
Yeah, all these are like really limited range 0 for every
Mm-hmm.
single thing except for is innate power,
Yeah.
where it's range 1, but then you move into that land, and now you have like that range 0 activated.
Right. I mean,
That's pretty cool.
you mentioned you like the puzzle of trying to be in range and all that stuff, but I found it to be a little lacking in part because you're always placing presence and your innate. Basically, no matter what you do, you're hitting the first threshold. It's just one fire, one animal. And so you're always able to wiggle yourself one more around. So it's not. I'm sure on bigger boards that's more of a problem, but like, I don't know. I just didn't find it. I was always where I needed to be, basically. I don't know.
It is like on bigger boards, it is a problem with the range, but it's not just that. It's a significant number of damage cards requires Sacred Sight. When I say significant, I mean like most of them. And you don't move your presence if your presence is already there, which means you can't make Sacred Sights with this. And so there's this tension of how do you get to where you need to be with the small range and the Sacred Sights while you're spreading yourself thin, because this is a required effect.
Interesting.
So I like that.
Okay. Okay. Is there any power cards you're particularly hot on with this thing?
Gold's Allure.
Oh.
Yeah, this card is so good on the Spirit. It has all 3 of his elements and costs 0, and his starting hand costs 6. And while you have 2 energy a turn, you can grow 3, gain 3 energy. I'm trying to really push that bottom track as hard as I can, and so finding something that is 0 energy is something that I really want to do. But we were just talking about that range and pulling things into you. I love doing that. And having all 3 of your elements, I think there's only one other card, and it doesn't cost 0. So this one like stands out to me as, ooh, I see Gold's Allure, I take Gold's Allure.
Okay.
It's cool too because it doesn't do damage, and yet this is the one I want the most.
Okay. Makes sense. Yeah. I don't have anything for that or the adversaries or the blight or anything else really for that. I don't like this spirit. I think it's pretty boring. Yeah. The thing is just I don't really think that there's some sort of like secret I'll unlock with it. Right? There's some more complex spirits that I'm like, ooh, I don't get this spirit, but like I feel like there's just more to learn with it. Whereas this one, it's just like, well, I see what this is. I understand what it's trying to do. I just don't really resonate with it. So, yeah.
And not every spirit's for every player, that's for sure. Like Shadow Flicker, like Flame.
So moving on, the next spirit I want to talk about is Rising Heat of Stone and Sand, which I find to be kind of a similar premise to Teeth. But I think that
Me too.
what it does is a way more interesting and synergistic and makes you like ultimately what you want, or what I want in a spirit at least. I don't want damage just handed to me on a platter, right? Like when it comes to like eyes, what I like about it is you have to set up the Dahan and the explorers and yourself. You have to set up everything in the right way so that when the Dahan come in, you defended them correctly and they do the damage. That is not the same as a card that just says, do 10 damage here, right? That card is powerful, but that card is boring as anything and would break the game wide open. So you want to have to work for it. And Rising Heat of Stone and Sand, so thematically, it makes things uncomfortable by cranking up the heat, and then it does just a little bit of harm, maybe like a fire or something here or there, to push the weakened invaders over the edge. And the main defining
Just a casual fire.
yeah, just a little one, not
little bit.
not a wildfire, just a controlled burn. It's fine. Of invaders. Yeah, and the defining thing about this spirit is that a very simple rule. It's only a few words. At your sacred sites, invaders have -1 health to a minimum of 1. And so what that means is that like the previous spirit we were talking about, this has a lot of damage dealing and stuff, but being a sacred zone means that other spirits can interact with this as well, right? It's not just,
Yeah.
oh, my damage dealing powers do +1. If I play the gift on you, you're fine, but otherwise you don't get nothing. This one sets things up in such a way that you absolutely can have these powerful turns, but you have to actively work for it by getting your sacred sites into spots with invaders and protecting yourself so that that sacred site stays there. I like that a lot. I think it's cool.
It is cool. This spirit reminds me a lot of River, Surges, and Sunlight.
Okay.
And I think that's it's weird to think about because they're thematically almost antithetical to each other. But their growth tracks are not just their tracks, but their growth options are so similar. And their innate ability does damage. Like it wipes the land. That's what this says. You destroy everything in this land, especially if it's if your presence is there, it just goes away.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool that it feels like an iteration of River in a different Sunlight, in a different dynamic.
Yeah, so thematically, in addition to that sacred, that special rule, it just kind of has this theme of minor damage, right? Where it's like you have a stinging sandstorm that does 1 damage. You have Gift of Searing Heat, which makes a target spirit pay 1 energy to do 1 damage in one of their lands, and you have your innate, which can scale up to be a lot more damage, but it starts at 2 damage to explorers and then moves up to just 2 damage, and then it's this minor damage, but the fact that it's minor doesn't really matter because you're weakening the invaders. Secondly, it has some board control elements. Sweltering Exhaustion lets you skip a Ravage and build. Call on the Herders for aid moves Dahan and Explorers in towns. Stinging Sandstorm lets you move one of your presence, which is another thing it has in common with Teeth, weirdly enough.
Yeah. It's really cool that moving presence is on these simple spears. I love that.
Then the last thing I'd say, support is kind of like its other thing, because in addition to having the gift, which I think all of these spirits have 1 gift, but its special rule is something that does affect everyone in the game, right? Everyone that's near your sacred site. Eyes isn't going to help anyone else pull Dahan in unless Eyes uses a card specifically on another player. Whereas this one, it's just always in effect, which is neat.
The downside is while it does affect other players, it has -1 health for these invaders. If you're there, they're probably not. That is the enemies, of course. So I really like pulling this in with spirits that really control, can push the invaders into your land, not do damage to them, but get them in there and you can do the damage.
That's fair. And one of the cool things too is just it's got kind of a unique growth, right? Where it has the middle option of placing 2 presents, which sure, a lot of spirits have that. Eyes had that. But you can only place them in mountains and sands. But you can place them at a range of 3, so you can basically place them most mountains and sands just on the island.
Yeah.
And then, interestingly, it's not a case of, like, Volcano, where you can only place it in mountains. You can actually move your presence, as we said, with 1 card, and your growth 3 allows you to place a presence at range 1 anywhere. So it's this other kind of thing of like, it is easy. It is as easy as growth 2 to get a sacred site in a mountain or a sands, but to get it somewhere else, it's possible, but you gotta plan for it. You gotta work for it.
A little bit of work, a little bit of effort. The range on the presence 2, or the placing 2 presents, is super far, and I really like the gain power and gain 2 energy. It feels like you're like you start off as a 3 energy 2 card play if you go from the bottom spirit just to start the game. And in that restriction of like you're crawling through the lands, it makes me want to growth 2 just to be able to get that distance, but the gaining a power and 2 energy is so tempting.
Yeah.
I like that decision. I love the tension there.
Yeah, it's just got nice growth options. It doesn't get you everything you need all at once, but across them, it's pretty cool. Like the fact that your Reclaim does still also get you 1 energy and the power card. It's nice. So Yeah, I think what you laid out is a pretty obvious opening is growth 3, add your presence, but take it from the bottom track so you get 2 card plays, get 2 energy so you have 3 energy to play with. And then from there, I don't know, either Gift of Searing Heat to set someone up. You could probably not Sweltering Exhaustion to skip a build. Probably not turn 1, but you could.
Yeah,
Um,
it's not a bad thing. The earlier you skip actions, the more actions you skip in the future, effectively.
that's fair. So maybe that is the right thing. Or you set up, you can call on Heroes for Aid. You bring Dahan in. You push out the Explorer in town that was in a land.
That I'm a big fan of that play. I think it's a really strong
Yeah.
one.
Sorry, the Explorer or town. It's push up to 1. But yeah, that's
For
still a good one.
each Dahan though.
Oh yeah, duh. Okay, never mind. So yeah,
This card does a lot of things.
yes, yeah, and for only 1. Yeah, and then you probably don't want Stinging Sandstorm turn 1, but you could. You certainly could.
Oh heck yeah.
If you do 1 damage somewhere where you're at a sacred site already, there you go. You killed the town.
I like to play Call Herders for aid and Stinging Sandstorm on turn 1.
Mhm.
That's my preference.
Okay.
And you get to kill an explorer that, just got placed and deal with whatever built up on the previous turn.
Mm-hmm. Something worth noting is that so far, at least, the 3 spirits we've talked about have all had a gift of sorts, right? Something played on another spirit or on themselves. And they've all had a way to circumvent a Ravage, either by skipping it, defending 9 and pushing out Dahan, or defending 4 or 8 in the case of Eyes. And I think that's neat.
That is a general heuristic of all spirits. They have like a damage, a defend, a gift, and then like a wild card.
Really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's not like strict,
Right.
like sometimes spirits do other things dramatically, but that's just a general heuristic. This is a good starting point.
You're right, actually. Now that I think about it, that does make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I guess it's also just in this case, those defend cards are really high. Defend 9 is high defense. Defend 8 is also high
Well,
defense.
that's a lot of damage.
Yeah.
A lot of defend in that case.
Yeah, there's a lot. But yeah, I like Sweltering Exhaustion flexibility that you can either skip a Ravage or a build. Because oftentimes you don't really want to skip a Ravage, but skipping a build is almost always good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a cool thing. Like, making it so that it's not defend removes power in some ways and then gives power in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so having spirits be able to deal with ravages in a meaningful way is important, but it doesn't have to feel the same every single time. So having a skip is really cool.
Okay. What weaknesses would you say the spirit has?
What weaknesses does this spirit have? Yeah, it really needs very specific cards. Its starting energy for its cards is 4. And whenever you have a spirit that can place 2 presents, you want to do that. But if you do that, you feel as though you can't do what you want to do all the time. And so you're pushed into this situation where you want to grow 3 a little more often, just so you can get that 2 energy and maintain high card plays, because it's very difficult to do Scorch with Waves of Heat at a high threshold without a lot of card plays. And so you don't want to play off the top very often, almost ever, or at least until you've gotten to several card plays.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that I know that can happen is if you don't clear the invaders fast enough, right? You have your sacred zone. There's a lot of invaders there. You have to protect your sacred zone, right? You could end up with a situation where they ravage and then you lose the sacred zone there, and then everything you were setting up is just kind of like for naught, or at least delayed by a turn or two. So, yeah.
Have you ever been to Arizona?
No, I have not.
If you ever look into the distance, This is what I imagine rising heat of stone and sand looks like.
Mm.
You can see the temperature there.
That's what it looks like in the picture. It's got that kind of that like heat effect on the horizon
Yeah.
of Spirit Island.
You look at the cement off in the distance or the desert. You're like, this is that spirit.
Mm. Yeah. And yeah, I do like the theme that like they're weakened because they're hot and uncomfortable. Like if you ever try to do work in a really arid temperature, ugh, or basically the past 2 weeks here in America on the East Coast at least, it's been just humidity, disgusting.
I feel wet.
So power cards, look, any of those cards that do 1 damage to each invader, like Quicken the Earth Struggles or Mists of Oblivion, these cards go way up in value because suddenly this is a destroy every town in your Sacred Zone land, and that is really cool.
Quicken Your Struggle is insane.
Mm-hmm.
That's that's a lot.
Yep. That's
It's good elements, destroy all towns. If there's any cities there, you have the elements to be able to do your personal innate power. That's really good.
yeah. And the weakness of Quicken the Earth Struggles is you have to have a Sacred Zone in the spot. And guess what? You need that for the rest of this anyway, so it perfectly lines up.
Yeah, that's a card that you want for sure.
Mm-hmm. In terms of like adversaries, I think something like England with a bunch of buildings is kind of like this is a favorable matchup because if there's just going to be a ton of towns and cities in select locations, you being there and wiping them all out is a lot easier with this spirit than some.
It's like you completely countered their +1 health.
Yep.
I actually think the +1 health is a bit of an issue. It makes the cards that would wipe out the towns not do that anymore, and that's a problem.
I mean, fair, but that is kind of a problem for everyone. At least this somewhat counteracts it.
But he doesn't have any backup plan.
Okay.
If he doesn't do that, what else is he doing?
Just crying in the
So
corner.
that's the problem.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right, fair.
We don't want that. I do like counteracting that at bonus health, though, because that health is scary.
Mm-hmm. So, notable interactions with, like, events or fear cards, I guess, is that any of these other minus health things it's just diminishing returns on this thing. Sometimes it's cool you got a city down so that you just do 1 damage, but a lot of times, like when we're just talking about towns, it's just redundant, right? They can't go below 1, so
Yeah.
you're weakening them, and then this is weakening them. Now, obviously, places that you're not having a Sacred Zone, it might still be useful, but it just unfortunately, like you kind of wish that it would just kill them, really. But no, minimum of 1.
Yeah. It's a c'est la vie.
Yeah. In terms of spirit combos, I think this is a cool combo with Eyes because Eyes can kind of protect the Sacred Zones, and then also the Dahan damage goes a lot further when everything in it is weakened by 1.
The Gift of Searing Heat, that's actually just Eyes right there, right?
Very true. It sure is. Eyes on fire.
Don't say it that way. It's a little creepy.
The card is a little creepy. It looks like
It is.
It looks like a pea pod that's on fire.
It does. It took me a moment to realize what it was myself.
Yeah.
It's a cool card.
Yeah. Okay. I like this one. My wife is specifically a very big fan of the spirit. It was like one of the first ones she's played after moved on from the base game spirits, and I don't know, she's just a really big fan of it. I think it's got like a nice solid plan. It's not crazy overpowered, but it has a little more going on than teeth, and I think that's neat.
The spirit is like quintessential middle of the road. When I think of a balanced spirit, this is one of them comes to my mind.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
So,
yeah. Moving on to Sunbright Whirlwind.
This is my favorite spirit from this
hey!
expansion.
All right. So what is this spirit all about?
You place your presence, you move and explore, you prevent the build. The rest of it is actually just moving stuff around too. I love moving things. It's a fun little puzzle for me.
It goes whoosh.
Whoosh.
It's
is the mountain kitty.
yeah, it's baby bringer of dreams and nightmares.
It's it's what's the spirit? Reach? I
Reach?
Madness. I think it's Madness from Shadow Flicker Like Flame,
Okay.
where you place your presence and you do something, but this one does it a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
Okay. Yeah, the main shtick, as we said, is that it pushes things. It pushes a lot of things, and it pushes them everywhere. Its special rule is that after you add a presence during growth, you get to push up to one explorer / Dahan from that land. Its innate pushes things. It's let's see. It's one of its gifts allows you to make a slow thing fast, but only one that says push or gather.
That's a lot of abilities, by the way.
Here's a stupid question, right?
Yeah.
If I have a card that's like, deal 10 damage or gather 3 to Han, could I make that card fast if I do the top thing?
Yeah, it has the
Yeah.
word on it, so you can do it.
If I do either effect, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You'll see that this combo is with like the other spirits from this box because the spirit that we were just talking about, Devouring Teeth and Rising Heat, they move their presence as well as Fathomless Mud. We'll get to that in a moment, but death approaches from beneath the surface is a slow, and it says gather one of your presence and then do a lot of damage.
Yeah. Interesting.
And so that's a cool synergy.
What's kind of funny about this card is that there's not many things in the game that are like synergy with keywords. If you know what I'm saying? Like, there's
Yeah.
not things that say, like, for every card you play that says damage, do 2 damage. Like, there's not. Other card games do that all the time, right? Like Magic will do that, when you play this keyword, do this. Triggered effects, I guess. But this is one of not many instances in the game that very specifically says that, which is neat. A good reason to clean up the formatting on some of the text of the base game cards.
One of the triggered events that I think of is Vengeance of the Dead. And it's like after an effect destroys something, then you do damage. And so it multiplies your damage. But most of the time, whenever you have cards that look at stuff like that, they tend to be really underwhelming in this game because they require another major power. And that's just too much. So this is a really cool that it's on a unique and push and gathers on so many cards.
Yes, and there's, I think, only like 2 other cards in the game that can make things slow things fast. Maybe a spirit
1,
or
2,
2
3.
as well.
I can think of 3 cards, 3 powers. One of them is unique. 3 in addition to this one, so 4 in total. That's my memory.
Yeah. So the thing with the spirit is that it's much better at supporting other spirits, I'd say.
Yeah. We were talking about that heuristic earlier, right? Where your unique powers do like a damage, a defend, a boon of some sort, and then like a wild card. Well, they kind of twisted this just a little bit. You have 2 boons, and your defend, like, it exists in the form of a fast push everything, get it all out of here. And so that's cool.
Wait, hang on. Which one are you talking about? The fast get everything out of here.
Or the slow, my bad. You're
Okay.
You're defending through like in advance, you know.
Scatter to the winds, I think, is what you're talking about, which
Yeah.
is slow. But absolutely, the turn before you can, so you get to push up to 5 explorers /
5.
towns / Dahan, which say as long as there's not a city there, that is just gone. It's cleared. Now, granted,
5
the downside is that
many.
you have to push them to as many different lands as possible, meaning you might end up scattering 5 explorers all around, and then builds everywhere.
Ow.
Yeah.
But I often think about slow as like faster than fast, you know. It's the flow between slow to fast is all your turn, and so it tips what defend looks like for the spirit.
Okay.
They have a way to
Interesting.
deal with the ravage. You just have to say, they're building here, I'll deal with it then.
Yeah. And I think, for what it's worth, I think this is a lot more interesting than just a spirit that does damage, because you have to think very carefully about where you're pushing everything. You can't just push it willy nilly to say, well, I want it out of here because it's going to ravage, and just push it wherever I don't care, because then that's kicking the can down the road.
In a lot of ways, Sunbright is doing that, though. They're kicking the can down the road. They're like, someone will deal with it eventually, right?
Yeah. Like there is definitely a lot of power here in terms of the ability to push, right? It is a big deal because it means that you only need one really cool major card to clear a ton of things, right? If you've been pushing things all around and then bunching them up in one land, that means one major power, one I don't know, that card that sinks everything on the coasts, right? Like something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You only need that once, and then boom.
Yeah, this
That's what's cool.
feels like a baby's first finder, and that's cool. Um,
Yeah.
I love doing things during the growth. I think placing your presence and dealing with the land is super cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Uh,
And the thing is that this does have ways of dealing with things. Ways of getting rid of things. You just have to work for them. You either push the Dahan using that special rule and your presence placement. You get your threshold all the way up, and then you get to do 4 damage in target land, or get to do, for each invader pushed by this power, 1 damage in the land it was pushed to, or both, I guess,
yeah.
if you threshold it all the way. Uh, and then it does have Tempest of Leaves and Branches, which is choose up to 5 different invaders in target land, 1 damage to each of them, which, yeah, you need to work to get that to really do much, but it can.
Mm-hmm. You can combo with Rising Heat and just wipe out a bunch of towns. Ooh, that's cool. That's
Fair.
fun.
Fair. Any interesting opener thoughts?
I think that this spirit is like really versatile. I like throwing my presence really far, like you would with wildfire, using growth 3, and instead of dealing 1 damage with that fire, you push it, and in a lot of ways, it's the same. And so you don't need a lot of power in your cards, especially early on, because moving something is so powerful. Uh, Other
Yeah.
than that, I love playing my gifts.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, of course, that's very context dependent on who you're playing with, what they need, and all that stuff. Um, yeah. It's a very free flowing spirit that probably doesn't really have such a set in stone. You always want to be doing this type of opening.
The earlier you can scatter to the winds is probably better. It's a slow thing, and everything else is fast. So there's
Right.
that. Also,
That's
it's
fair.
hard to get your threshold like up and running. It's kind of challenging, and so if you can play scatter plus one of your gifts on turn 1, then you do get to push and explore during the slow, and then you get to grow, and now you've dealt with both of the explorers as well as their build. It's you get to do a lot that way. Uh, have you played this against England?
No, I've only played the spirit a few times.
It feels impossible.
Because you can't bunch things up too
And
badly, or
you
else.
can't prevent these builds, and so you place you move things around. They're like, okay, cool. So versus most adversaries, we won't build, but we still are. Have fun.
So I think an obvious weakness of this spirit is that it cities don't move.
Cities don't
So
move.
so the bulk of what it's doing, obviously it does have that 4 damage if it's max threshold innate.
It's hard
but
to do.
Yeah, the bulk of what it's doing, oh cool, you can do 1 damage to a city. Isn't that great with your Tempest of Leaves and Branches? Uh yeah, yeah, I think the best thing to do about that is to just not let cities happen, but obviously that's harder with some adversaries than others.
Yeah. I think a lot of the adversaries are like decent enough for this.
Mm-hmm.
HME is a bit challenging because you group things up in the same way as you would like Finder of Paths Unseen,
Mm-hmm.
but England feels kind of impossible. It's tough.
Interesting. Um, is there any specific power card you like with this thing?
I like to pick up Reaching Grasp. I
Hmm.
think this is a really cool card for it, as well as Sky Stretches. I love to give my friends the extra range that they're all asking for, and it has that sun and air.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think those are both really cool. I'm always looking for sun and air cards on the Spirit. Uh, More like I care about its thresholds so much because it doesn't have unique powers that are very strong personally, and a
Hmm.
lot of the cards that you're looking for are support cards, and so getting the support cards that are on element is really desirable.
Hmm. I kind of mentioned it before. I didn't mention it by name, but Sweep into the Sea was the card I was thinking of, and
Oh, okay.
it's a slow power, and you could make that fast if you wanted to, with your own because it says
Yeah.
push. So anything that's kind of slow that has push or gather in it that might be of use to you fast, right? Either maybe just in this situation, maybe when you're drafting, you're just desperate for something, right? If it says gather or push, usually making a slow thing fast is kind of the things that are slow require a little more planning, and so therefore they're usually a little more powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to kind of cheat that ahead, I think, is a cool thing, and it is one of those gifts that it can use on itself. It is not another player.
I thought you were talking about Cast Down into the Briny Deep earlier.
No, I think I said a word that was like cast or something,
Yeah,
but no, no, no. I was talking about sweep into the sea, which
that's
is a
cool.
similar concept, but like yeah, you just push, and I feel like that would just be great for the spirit as well because you just push everything to a coastal land and then just bye everything that is in a city.
Goodbye. Yeah. Draw Towards the Consuming Void is a card that I always kind
Mm.
of adore, but yeah, has the word gather on it, so making that fast, not for yourself, but a teammate. Someone play this and
Hmm.
repeat it at fast, please.
Yeah. Um.
The word gather
Okay.
just
And
appears on things.
um. And we mentioned some spirits that go well with this. Really, anything like I think wildfire would probably go pretty nicely with this. You just push everything into wildfire's zone where it already has a blight, and wildfire never needs to place any more presents. You just
Wildfire and the Rising Wind, like, oh man, thematic combo too.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, last spirit.
And not least,
No, no, it is the mud otter, fathomless mud of the swamp.
what do you think of this one?
I have not had as much experience with this thing as I would like. But I do kind of put it in the middle of I enjoyed it, but I did not love it.
I think it's my second favorite, and the people I play with, I'm pretty sure all three of them, it's theirs from this box.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, first thing that I want to point out from the spirit is this is
Mm-hmm.
the only spirit in the entire game that has this sort of growth pattern, and
Oh.
it is it's always placing a presence, but sometimes it's placing two. It's a zero or it's a 1-2-1 growth
Hmm.
presence placement, and that's really unique. There are several like 0-2-1 or 1-1-1,
111. Yep.
0-1-1. That's a common one, right? But this one
Mm-hmm.
is a 1-2-1. That's cool. I like that.
Yeah. Well, especially because it needs to. It needs to for its special rule, which is at your sacred zone. Build actions. Add explorer instead of a town/city. And I think the interesting thing about mud, I think that compared to the rest of the spirits in this box, this one has much less of an interconnected specific theme. What do you think?
What do you mean?
Oh, just that. I mean, I think like damage sums up teeth pretty well.
Okay.
Push sums up sunbright pretty well. Defend sums up eyes pretty well.
The theming of the spirit is really well pronounced because the gameplay feels like what it is. I feel like
Okay.
I am oozing across the map slowly, making the whole island a swamp that can't be built on. Something that I'm pushing the invaders closer and closer to the coast, making sure that they never get a single inland building. And so I feel the thematic ties of what the fathomless, unyielding mud of the swamp looks like just by staring at the board. Uh, and I don't get that same feeling with the other ones. Whereas here I'm like, oh, I am the mud.
Well, yeah, you're talking about thematic. I just mean gameplay wise, and I mean this as a compliment because I feel like it has more of a diversity of what it wants to do
Mm-hmm.
than to be summed up simply as defend, push, damage at a weakened spot. You know that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean there is like somewhat of a theme. You could certainly say that the theme is reducing everything to explorers and then killing those explorers, right?
In a lot of ways, yeah.
But yeah, I think that it's a little more complicated, I guess. Not very much so, but it's not obvious looking at what the spirit can do to just say like, oh yeah, you're trying to do this. Like, there's a lot it can do, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It is also, as you mentioned, it's a very slow spirit. It's innate, and 3 out of the 4 of its powers are slow.
Yeah, and the one that's fast is a defend. You know, matching that heuristic has a defend, one
Mm-hmm.
damage, a boon, and a wild card. It pushes to explorers.
Mm-hmm. I have to shout out the art on Exaltation of Tangled Growth. It is just like the prettiest thing.
It's awesome. It's got the eyes on there, and the otters
Yep.
just splashing around. It's cute.
But yeah, yeah, its special rule is pretty dang powerful if used correctly.
It is.
You stop a city from existing, and instead, oh, it's Explorer. Who cares?
Russia cares.
Oh yeah, I try to not think about Russia. Really, it's not.
Just put them in the back of my brain. Don't think about them.
Well, yeah, I play Russia so infrequently that I try not to. Yeah. Anyway, no, but yeah, I think it's cool that it has a way of quote unquote dealing with cities, even though
Oh
you're just
yeah,
like preemptively dealing with them.
the adversaries that build a lot, like England. Oh, this is so strong. Instead of them
Hmm.
going build, ravage, build, you just placed 4 explorers, 5 explorers. Like, yes, 5 explorers is a lot, but that's nowhere near as bad as it could have been.
Yeah, I mean, I think the spirit does teach the importance of like, yeah, changing up what the builds do is really good. And it's also, I think, also kind of reflected what I was saying before is its summary of powers, right, by the official people that make this game is all of these levers are in the middle. Offense, fear, and defense are like exactly in the middle and equal. Control and utility is a little lower, but not that much lower, and they're equal too. So this is I guess what I'm just trying to say is I think this is the most all-rounder spirit in the Horizons box in terms of it's not pushing you towards any one highly specific game plan. But I agree with you that it is highly thematic and flavorful.
I love it. The other spirit that I think of with its similar growth track is green, rampant green, because
Hmm.
they're always placing presence as well, and sometimes they do add 2, so they're kind of like a 1-2-1 spirit too. The OG, I guess.
Hmm.
And I like that like they restricted the sort of power that is acquired from placing so many presence down by making it so that you when you reclaim, you're adding at range 0, and you're spreading yourself thin, and you're trying to create these sacred sites to then like make them vanish. I think it's really
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Hmm. What would you say is a weakness of the spirit?
Oh, that sacred site issue. The number of times that I've
Yeah.
played with new players and they go, I want to use my spreading and dreadful mire, but I don't have a
Mm.
sacred site. Like, well, that makes sense. You know, they want to add presence 1 away because that's what it's allowed to do, or 2 away, but you have to do it at range 0 so you get those sacred sites.
Mm-hmm.
And underdoing the range is like a little unintuitive. Oftentimes you want to go as far as you possibly can, and here you need to do it less so you get those sacred sites, and it forces you by adding at range 0 when you reclaim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it is very interesting that this is one of maybe the only question mark levels of an innate that is absolutely required. If you hit it, you have to move one presence from the origin sacred site to the target land. If you are using that innate, you have to do it.
Hmm.
Um, Most of the rest of them in the game are just you could just not. uh, um,
The
yeah.
devouring teeth, has the required you must move it as well. Um,
That's true.
but this is another one of those damaging abilities that has the word gather or push on it.
Hmm.
Uh, as both, doesn't. Oh, it says move and then push. But even though you're pushing the Dahan, it has the word, and so you could like make this fast using uh the wind kitty.
Hmm.
That's cool.
Any power cards recommendations?
Yeah, entrancing apparitions is pretty cool here. You are making more than average number of explorers, and so
Mm.
being able to get those explorers where like the Dahan are at and defending there, it's like a cool little combo, and it's a nice on element. Big fan
Hmm.
of that.
That's
I
a
think it's pretty cool.
defend two if no invaders are present. Gather up to two explorers. Yeah, that's pretty nice.
Gift of power. He already has effectively gift of power in his starting unique. So getting another one with better elements is pretty nice.
And that's target spirit gains a minor power card.
Yeah. So those are two that stand out to me.
Nice, nice. So anything about adversaries?
England, gotta love
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Russia,
Gotta hate it.
don't. Yeah.
Yeah,
Everything else in
that's a
between is, they're fine.
yeah, that's a fair summation. Oh, actually, hey, I have a power card for you.
Oh yeah.
Ever hear of a little card called Call to Trade?
That card is cool.
Yeah, you gather a Dahan, and then if their level's 2 or lower, you gather a town, and the first Ravage becomes a build. And hey, if you have a Sacred Zone there, that's just an Explorer. Who cares?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yep, you've effectively just gathered a Dahan into town and prevented a Ravage, and just added an Explorer at worst. So, not too bad.
Yeah,
And
that's
you
definitely a good one.
like the Spirit like second most out of this box?
Yeah, yep, this is my number 2. I think that these spirits uh are really well rounded from this box. I think Eyes is like a little too strong, but not overwhelming. And I think that well, the Sandworm is a little weak, but it's fine. But
Mm-hmm.
these are really well rounded. They feel balanced, fun, engaging. Their decisions from each turn are cool. They feel like what simple spirits should be.
Yep. Yeah, it's funny that we are. This is the third expansion that has tried to do fix the base game low complexity spirits, right? There's two waves of aspects, right, from Jagged Earth and from Feather and Flame, and then there's also this. And this one hits it the most consistently for me. I think adding those elements on their boards, as well as adding, so they still, all of these still only have one innate, but the fact that those innates have a lot of different thresholds, right? They just kind of go up and up and up in power, as opposed to the base game low complexity ones, which are like what, 3 tiers, 4 tiers. Like these ones are generally have a lot more to them, five of them. Yeah, I think this just fixes a lot of that, while still giving us new stuff instead of just saying we're gonna reprint the base game ones, but like tweaked. Here's like entirely new spirits. Enjoy them. I think
Yeah.
these are good tools for teaching, and each one of them does teach specific things about the power of defending and how important sacred sites are, and all sorts of things that are just good, genuinely useful heuristics for the rest of the game. I think these spirits just do a lot in terms of fun, teaching, introductory, challenges, right? If we're saying that we think that like the sandworm is a little underpowered, then playing that against hard adversaries is a fun challenge for people that
For
want to go
sure.
for that. I think that all of that's great, and I do recommend this box.
Oh, easy recommend. It's a snap pickup for me at this point. The only thing I wish that it had were the spirits were a little chewier, a little more meat on their bone, but that's fine. These spirits are exactly what they're supposed to do, and they do what they're supposed to do perfectly. This box couldn't be better for 99% of players. This is
Yeah.
a must get if you see it.
I've seen people on Reddit like complain about they just want the spirits, right? They don't want to waste money on the box. But honestly, if you get it for $15, but even if you get it for $30, it's kind of worth it.
The cost of 5 new spirits is $30.
Exactly. And then on top of that, you get the updated cards, you get the extra presence colors, you get the board with technically new boards on it if you want that. Right? If you are in love with Spirit Island and you want to play this game in every possible way you can, having that board as just another option, right, of configuration,
Yeah.
cool, great. I think I agree, but I will also say, if you're someone who doesn't like love Spirit Island in the way that we do, this is an optional expansion. This does not in any way change the experience of the game. And if you're limited on what you can buy, or let's just say this thing goes out of print, and let's say it never comes back in print. I talk about it very highly, but I also think that it is optional. I don't think you need it. That's all I'm saying.
If you have a game night, this feels like a game that you could pull out, play once, and then play something else. This feels like something you could engage with early in the night or later on. And for me, with all the expansions, Spirit Island is like, it takes time to set up,
Yep.
and this feels like a game night game, not a
I think
Spirit Island night game.
I think if I ever did want to just play like without events or without, just a more vanilla experience, right? If I'm trying to teach someone or something like that, I think I would just pull out this board, right, and these spirits, and just go from there and
Yeah.
ignore everything else. And I think that that's fair. I think it adds a lot, and it is very rare that a product intended for newcomers can really appeal to people that love the game as much. There's plenty of products like that in various trading card games that the cards are just junk, right? Like you would
Yeah.
never want to play these. They're pre-constructed decks meant for newbies, but it's also just complete garbage, right? This is not that at all. So, all right, let's close up with the draft real quick.
Heck yeah. So we've got a draft pulled in today from the Discord, and it's from Migrant P.
I think he's someone cool.
Might be talking to him soon. Bringer of Dreams and Nightmares is what he's playing, and he is using the power. What is it? The Call on Midnight's Dream to target this land that has 4 Dahan, and he's probably going to forget something, that card, gain 4 energy, and he's asking, should we play, which card to take, and should he be playing it? We've got Pent-Up Calamity, we've got Terrifying Nightmares, Vengeance of the Dead, and Winds of Rust and Atrophy.
A lot of power at fast here.
Yeah, not only that, these are all like on element cards. Three of them have that moon, his favorite element. Three of them have the animal, and two have the wind. So there's a lot of options for getting those thresholds over the long term. They're all pretty cheap too, 3 and 4 energy. These are Bringer Dreams and Nightmares, like bread and butter type of cards. I think, for me, this is a quick and easy pent-up calamity. Generates a lot of fear, and it pushes things through the damage in the same way that Terrifying Nightmares would just push and generate a lot of fear at a cheaper cost. And Winds of Rust of Atrophy would be my backup, where Defend is just a powerful piece of text. But if you take that one, I'm not playing it.
Yeah, I really like Terrifying Nightmares a lot, but in this situation, because it's Bringer, which I've still never played, but I know it pushes things around a lot. I think that's maybe a little redundant there. I'm on the same page. I like Pent-Up Calamity, especially with the Fangs in the game, where Fangs at any moment could just swap its presence out for a beast, right? It can move its presence to where there's a lot of things. The next turn, swap its presence out for a beast, and bout on Pent-Up Calamity, and then gets a ton of fear. Pushes everything everywhere.
Yeah, I think this is a easy pent-up for me. It's got what you're looking for. It's a fun draft, though.
Yeah, I think Vengeance of the Dead is the dud, because Boudon can't destroy things by itself. So
you have to rely on other people, and then you're dealing 1 damage, and he can't. Actually can't.
Yeah, it's just awkward.
Yeah,
it's very awkward.
The other 3, good options.
Yep, good draft. Thank you for submitting it. If you would like to submit a draft for us, join our Discord server. Link in the show notes. And yeah, that's all we got for this week. Next week, Power Card Bingo.
Have a wonderful rest of your day. See you later, Alex.
We hope you enjoyed this spirited discussion.